Before I jump into this episode, I wanna I want to say something really, it's a very serious nature right now. And I don't really know how people are going to respond to it. I don't mean to go so off topic with the way that this episode starts out, but I've just got to get this off my chest this morning. Now, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it unapologetically, unfiltered, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna just come right out and say it. The most orgasmic drink in the world that you could drink, people. No, it's not Tropicana, even though that's a close second. No, it's not liquor, because it doesn't always taste good. But it's coffee. Coffee is the most orgasmic drink in the world, man. Thank God for whoever. I need to Google whoever invented coffee, man, because not only did I not sleep again last night, but to make matters either better or worse, in my case, both. But I guess that's just a sign of how fucking crazy I'm. I was about to say I'm is. Clearly, I have went off the rails and taken on different personalities this morning. I'm talking different and all that type shit. But it just goes to show how crazy I am, because I'm just loaded on coffee right now. It's sitting right next to me. I'm not even anywhere near done. But, I took a couple sips of the coffee, rightfully so, before I started the episode, man. And I just immediately feel rejuvenated. And I don't know if I'm like an honorary Elm Street kid or something like that. Like, I don't know if it's like, how they did in the 2010 remake, where the kids didn't even remember they were what Freddy did to them. It was like repressed memories. Like, am I one of those kids that has repressed memories of Freddy Krueger, and I'm originally an Elm Street kid who just so happened to end up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? I don't know, because my sleeping habits suck. But one of the good things about these shitty sleeping habits is that when I am up, when all else fails, I can break out a pen, I can break out a pad, I can write, I can do these outlines for this podcast, man, and be locked and loaded for the year 2021. Maybe 2022 if I work hard enough, but for the most part, I am pretty loaded, man. And I like having a variety to choose from. I like showing versatility in my movie content and all that type of stuff. But this isn't too versatile from where we last left off. Not where we last left off, because the last episode was an episode based on the Mighty Ducks, the Game Changers, Disney Plus series, and the overall trilogy of the Mighty Ducks. I talked about that. Y'all can check it out if y'all want. This one is more so geared towards the episode prior to that one. And the episode prior to that one, which y'all could check out also, was me just basically looking back on and doing a recap of the Children of the Corn franchise. It was tough to get through. Once I hit part 3, it started getting a little crazy, but I made it, man. Towards the end, I almost lost myself and went insane, but I made it. But this one's a lot more familiar in the sense of that episode in particular, because what I'm going to do, people, is I'm going to, if you haven't already, noticed from the title of the episode, I'm going to be looking back on a franchise that, I'm going to say a title that will always have my heart, but I'm going to say a franchise overall that deserved so much more, man. So much more that this franchise deserved. You get franchises that, even though they're fucking awful, they are true to what the franchises started off to be. Like, you look at shit like Sharknado, there's like 7 of those movies, but you got you got exactly what the title said in the first movie, and then they kept doing crazier and crazier shit. I can't watch those. Are some of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. But it's like, one thing I can say about those movies is they didn't go off the rails in the context of what they originally were about. They still stuck true to the dumbass shit they were doing. Now, this series, man, we're going to be talking about, people, the Return of the Living Dead series. Now, there's 5 entries in this series we're going to be talking about today. And they vary, depending on, I know for me personally, they do vary in quality. 5 entries, you would think that the series didn't go off the rails and just vary in quality as much as it did, but it did, man. It didn't take long for this series to lose its mind. But I'm pretty sure other people would agree. Of course everybody doesn't agree, but I'm pretty sure there are a handful of people that agree with me when I say this series deserved a hell of a lot better, man. It was so near and dear to everybody, whether it's hailed as a cult classic, whether it's I'm talking about the original, of course, whether it's hailed as a cult classic or just a classic in general. The movie is very special in the horror genre, in the horror comedy genre, in the zombie genre. So we'll jump right into it, people. The Return of the Living Dead. 1985, this movie came out. It was directed by Dan O'Bannon, who actually wrote, rest in peace, shout out to Dan O'Bannon. I watched a lot of his interviews like in the last days. It's a documentary, I think it's called Bringing the Dead to Life on I don't know if they have it on YouTube, but it's definitely on the Return of the Living Dead, the MGM DVD with the special features and stuff. But I love Dan O'Bannon, man. His interviews, he's such a laid back guy. He was such a laid back guy with a sense of humor, man. Rest his soul. But he actually wrote Alien and wrote the movie Life Force, which I want to say Life Force was directed by the late great Tobe Hooper. And he also did Invaders from Mars, and he wrote Total Recall. He wrote Screamers. He was a great guy, man. I really wish Dan O'Bannon was alive just to see how much people still adore The Return of the Living Dead, that first movie. The movie was written by John Russo, who also co-wrote with George A. Romero, The Night of the Living Dead, the 1968. Did commentary for that too, y'all check it out. I also did commentary for the first Return of the Living Dead, if y'all want to check that out. But the cast here was really something special, man. I feel like the cast here was, as far as an 80s movie, I don't know if these people thought they were going to be, thought they were going to be superstars or anything like that. Like Clu Gulager, I'm pretty sure was already in a bunch of movies at that time. Clu Gulager is like, he's one of the headliners here. James Cameron, who I'm pretty sure, I think James Cameron was Poltergeist before this movie, or was it after? I can't remember. Somebody can help me out there. Somebody will correct me. But James Cameron, I know I said James Cameron. James Cameron, I know was in Poltergeist, most notably in the 80s, at least for me, as far as like horror movies go. Don Calfa, you got the three old heads in there. Clu Gulager, James Cameron, Don Calfa. Tom Matthews is in there, who would go on, I think a year later, to be in both The Return of the Living Dead 2 and Jason Lives, favorite entry in the Friday the 13th series. But you got Tom Matthews, Miguel A. Nunez, who would go on to have an amazing career. Beverly Randolph, who played Tina. Linnea Quigley, who was basically, I mentioned Linnea Quigley when I was talking my Children of the Corn franchise episode, because Linnea Quigley, I compared Crystal Lowe to her, because Crystal Lowe is like naked in every horror movie she's in. Linnea Quigley is basically naked in every horror movie she's in. Brian Peck, who is the only person to star in 3 Return of the Living Dead films. He was in the first 3. He's in different roles and stuff like that, but good for him, man. Mark Venturini, rest in peace, shout out to him, who would also go on with Tom Matthews and Miguel A. Nunez to be in a Friday the 13th movie. I think after this. Was it before or after? I really can't remember, man. I know it was all 85, 86, that type of territory. But Mark Venturini and Miguel A. Nunez were actually in Friday the 13th Part 5 together. They didn't have any scenes together, but they both were in the film. Rest in peace, shout out to Mark Venturini. John Philbin, who I actually mentioned in my Children of the Corn episode. He plays Chuck in this film. Alan Trutman, who plays Tarman, one of the scariest and most memorable zombies you'll ever see on screen. And Jonathan Terry, of course, who plays Colonel Glover. He's a really intricate part in the story. Now, overall, not to spend too much time on the first Return of the Living Dead, I feel like overall, this is a movie that does it so well. The balance of horror and humor is absolutely astonishing in this movie, man. It really is. And you get just equal amounts of both, man, to the point where if this movie, if I'm not mistaken, Dan O'Bannon said that he didn't want to tread on George A. Romero's shoes any more than he already did. Because this is basically like a loose sequel or whatever that of Night of the Living Dead. It makes mentions of Night of the Living Dead in the first movie. And it's like, you've got James Cameron and Tom Matthews having that scene in his office. And James Cameron's like, have you ever seen that movie, Night of the Living Dead? Did you know that movie was based on a true case? And they do the exposition scene about the Trioxin barrels and what made the zombies come back to life in 68 and stuff like that. So what I think, Dan O'Bannon wanted to do was make it, not as serious, and he wanted to make this very much a film people could laugh at and enjoy. And damn it if they don't to this day. But there's just so, like, they spread it so evenly across the board here, man, to the point where the movie, there's still parts that are scary. There's still parts that are side split and funny. There's still parts that you can take seriously where these people are really doing some acting here. Clu Gulager is one of the best actors. Him and Don Calfa and James Cameron are three of the best actors, and that's rightfully so, man. You've got the three OGs to carry the weight, the OG weight of the film on their shoulders. And they do it amazingly, man. The kids here, Tom Matthews, Miguel Nunez, Beverly Randolph. Well, of course they're older than I am, but I'm just saying they're kids in the film. They're teenagers. They're punk rock teens. Linnea Quigley, Brian Peck, Mark Venturini, John Fiblin. Oh, I'm sorry. And Jules Shepard. How the fuck could I forget Jules Shepard, who played Casey, man? I am so sorry. But these kids, man, you'll never, ever, even if they've remade this movie, you'll never see a cast that is dressed like this. You'll never see a cast that interacts like this. You'll never see a cast that just, you identify with them by their outfits, by their hairdos. Spider's the one who's got the fatigue shit on, and he's got the Jerry curl. Linnea Quigley's the one who, she's got the gray leggings on, and she's got the leather shorts and the leather vest, and her head's just bright red. Jules Shepard is the one who's got the streaks of blue. She looks like a fox, and the blue matches her blue dress and shit. John Philbin always said his character was the one that kind of didn't fit in. He's got like a tuxedo or suit type clothing on and stuff like that. Suicide's got the chains, and he looks like he's fresh off the South Street and Hot Topic and shit like that. I'm telling you, man, these kids, these are the best group of punk rock kids I've ever seen in my life, man. Class of 1999, that movie ain't got shit on these kids, man. I'm trying to tell you. But the film overall is responsible for a lot, man. And again, rightfully so. This is the introduction of, this might have been the first time when we get an origin story on the zombies, how it happened. Cause it's hinted at in Night of the Living Dead 1968, but it's more so of a question. It's more so of a mystery when they even hint at it. They're talking about the Venus probe exploded and the radiation reflected off of, what I'm saying? It's loosely explained, but it's more of a mystery question type of thing. But this, you get an origin of what that supposed, movie and true story was based on and how it happened. And then you see the trioxin barrels, you see you see the gas squirt out of them. You see when the gas hits anything dead that once was alive, it comes to life. The butterflies, the split dogs, the cadaver, everything in the medical warehouse comes to life when this gas hits it. So when the gas goes into the ground, the zombies come back. It's an explanation, and it's pretty plausible for a 1985 zombie movie that's trying to reinvent the genre, so to speak. And it's responsible for a lot of things in the sense that, like I said, this is the first time we get an origin and an explanation in full, even down to James Cameron saying typical army fuck up. That's not uncommon nowadays either. But, you get zombies that talk. You get zombies. These were the first zombies to talk. These were the first zombies to be smart, as smart as they were. Because, Night of the Living Dead had Bill Hinsman's cemetery zombie pick up a brick and break the window to get Barbara. And they were using, table legs and bricks and rocks to break down the doors and the windows at the end of the film. So they were smart in a sense, but these zombies are actively smart. Like they're trying to get people out of steel closets, and they're springing traps for the police. They pop out the bushes on the police, on the paramedics. They're springing traps and setting up ambushes and stuff for these people just so they can eat them. But like I said, these zombies talk, they scream brains, they have full blown conversations. These zombies, man, they're the first running zombies also. Let me put that out there. I almost forgot. These are the first zombies on screen, at least to my knowledge, that we've ever seen run before. And They run pretty fucking fast, man. There's a scene. They're not like, these were the fast zombies back in the day, and because it was a new thing, it was scary as hell. Now running zombies are common. You've got the Horde. You've got what is that? 28 days, 28 weeks later. You've got World War Z. You've got Resident Evil Extinction. The Resident Evil movies on up from that movie. You've got running zombies. That ain't nothing new. And Dawn of the Dead, 2004 remake. You've got running zombies galore in almost every movie now. But Return of the Living Dead was the OG. It was the originator to really start that up. And I appreciate that, man, because it was one of the things that they did differently with the film. Another thing that they introduced was the fact that if the gas hits you, you die at some point, but you don't even know it. Like, Tom Matthews and James Cameron's character are going through, I keep calling him James fucking Cameron. Damn, James Karen's character, they are going through stages of rigor mortis while they are quote unquote still alive, and it's a really disturbing part of just the lore of this movie. The shit that this trioxin gas can do to you is just insane. Now the movie overall, it doesn't end on a good note per se, but it ends on a realistic note because, they call Colonel Glover. The zombies are breaking through the blockade and just taking over the town of Louisville, Kentucky. And, they called a number on the side of the trioxin tank, and basically Colonel Glover's just like, wait, where you guys at? Now what happened? And okay. And there, that, you want fries with that? Okay. And a medium. Okay. Got you. Yeah. Like he's just writing all of this shit down when they call him for help. What does he do? He calls up the homies. They launch a nuke onto where the zombies are at, and they blow all that shit the fuck up. But what they don't know is that when they blow it up, you see like the gas from the zombies and everything rising back up to the sky and making it rain all over again. And it's I'm not gonna say it's an incomplete ending, but it's like a cliffhanger ending. You know what's about to happen, but we never really got a proper follow up to that. We got a follow up nonetheless, in 1988, which we're about to jump into, but it wasn't the follow up people expected. And I can understand why people are divided as far as the sequel goes. Return of the Living Dead 2, like I said, 1988, different director entirely, different writer, same guy though, writer and director Ken Wiederhorn. And he did Shockwaves, Eyes of a Stranger, Meatballs 2. Shockwaves is actually, I think Peter Cushing is in that movie. I remember watching the trailer like a couple months ago. I actually want to go back and watch that film because it looks like it's got some aspects of creepy up in there. I don't know. Now, the thing I can understand threw people off in this film, James Cameron, God, oh my God, like somebody put a fucking shock collar on my neck right now if I keep calling this man James Cameron. I am so disrespectful. James Cameron and Tom Matthews are back in this film, but they're playing two different characters, whereas they played Frank and Freddy in the first Return of the Living Dead movie, but here they play Ed and Joey. And I can understand why that throws people off because it's like, wait, like what's going on here? And I remember William Stout, who I think was the production designer on the first movie. I remember him reading, and he did like the special effects, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember him in an interview saying he read the script. It's actually a documentary, or documentary type of thing on YouTube for Return of the Living Dead 2, and y'all can check that out if y'all want, just to get a better insight than the shit that I'm trying to explain here. Now, the production designer and special effects guy, I remember him saying he read the script and he was like, he was just shocked at how much of it was plagiarized from the first movie, and he was like, listen, I'll sue your ass for this shit or something. Like, it was not a good relationship with Ken Wiederhorn and the people, previously involved with the film. But for some reason, James Cameron, God damn it, I just took my glasses off and everything. I'm so frustrated that I keep calling this man James Cameron. How many times? Put a meter. I wish if this was a video, I would put a meter at the bottom of the screen. How many times I fucked this guy's name up? James Cameron and Tom Matthews. Apparently, it was something in the script that they liked about it, so they jumped on board. And I don't necessarily mind it. I just know as a kid, I was confused. Because there's a scene that really fucked me up. I always have a good time when I watch this movie. It doesn't hold a candle to the first one, but I always have a good time with the zombie effects and with the humor is just on overload. They're not even trying to take it seriously at all this time. But there's a scene that always confused me with Tom Matthews and James Cameron being back in this film where they're in the car and they're getting away from the zombies, and he's like, it's like we've been here before. He's like this. He said it's like it's like a dream. This whole thing, and it's just like he was having this crazy case of deja vu. And I'm like, wait, is this Freddy? Like, did he survive? Is this Frank? Like, did they, like, what happened? Like, it always confused me as a kid, but I just know I know now, like, the more savvy I get to film, I knew this years ago. It's like the way that it was written, it was written like that on purpose, just to kind of be some meta reference to them being in the first film. You know what I'm saying? But, in addition to these two OGs being on, you know, on the casting deck, you got Suzanne Snyder from the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Michael Kenworthy, he plays Jesse. He's the main kid who can kind of be annoying at times, but I appreciated this kid when I was a kid, because I'm like, he's kind of doing shit that I don't think I would do during a zombie apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was a little ballsy. And, you know, he drove that big ass truck at the end, and I'm like, how does his feet reach the pedal? I don't know how that makes sense, but whatever. You got Marsha Dietlin. I hope I'm saying her name right. Dana Ashbrook, who I think was in, what's that movie? Waxworks. And I got to finish watching that as well. You got Phil Bruns. Alan Trutman actually came back to play Tarman. His screen time is very limited. He's only in one scene, and he just gets disposed of by just getting pushed in a waterfall. And Jonathan Terry came back to play Colonel Glover. He's got a good scene in the movie where he sees the trioxin barrels, and it's a close-up shot on him, and he's just like, Jesus Christ, not again. And they just do a slow zoom in shot on the trioxin barrels. But he's only in 2 scenes in that film, and he was just very underutilized in that movie. But whatever, tomato. But this movie overall, I completely understand why people either don't like it as much as the original or just flat out hate it. I understand. I completely understand. Don't get me wrong. I want y'all to know that I'm with y'all there. But me personally, I don't share the same sentiment overall, because this is a movie I would literally stare at. I would go into West Coast Video as a kid, and I would stare at the cover, because, you know, the cover is the cemetery, but then it's the smoke coming out the cemetery, and the smoke forms a face in the sky, and in the background is the small town that's under construction. It's actually being built. And a lot of people say that poster is a direct rip from the Fright Night poster from the 80s. I don't know. I don't really give a shit, because I didn't see Fright Night until a couple years ago for the first time, honestly. And I still like the remake better, but whatever. To each their own, right? But, I used to literally just stare at this poster, man, and I was just looking like, that face in the sky don't even feel right. Then, of course, I would look at the back of the box, and you would see certain zombies, and you would see Jesse standing on top of that casket that he falls through when they lock him in the mausoleum. And it was just certain things that just drew me to that, just the cover art and the pictures on the back alone. So I remember when I first saw The Return of the Living Dead, it was confusing, because as a kid, I didn't know that these weren't the same. I mean, I know they died in the film, but I'm like, I didn't know that right away that these weren't the same characters from the first movie. Because I wasn't used to that. You know, they'll do that nowadays with no problem. You know, they'll put people in a sequel or a reboot that were already in it, and they don't have to really explain a damn thing. But back in the day, them doing it was just kind of strange to my brain back then. Now, the main thing that this movie has going for it, like I said, they went full-blown comedy. There's no room for any serious moments in this movie. I don't give a damn if they even were trying to add small pockets of seriousness to this film. You can't take it seriously. For any stoners out there, I recommend that's the best way to watch this movie. Just watch it completely baked, because even completely sober, this movie's a riot, man. It is funny as shit. Is it funnier than the first one? No, but it tries to be, because it's just wall to wall humor. And when they get introduced to the doctor, who I think is played by Phil Bruns, he plays Doc Mandel. The doctor is just a whole different character in itself, man. He fits right into the category with people like Don Calfa, James Cameron, Clu Gallagher. Did I just say Cameron again? I hope I didn't, man. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to act like I didn't, and we're going to move on. We're going to get through this. I promise y'all. Now, the movie, like I said, is funny as shit. There's a scene where the zombie gets his hand pulled off inside the car that they're driving in, and they're basically playing hot potato with the hand while it's just crawling all over the fucking place, man. It's one of the funniest scenes in the entire movie. Now, outside of the humor, where the movie really shines for me, man, and I'm not going to say they shied away from this particular thing in the first movie, but there were, the zombies were covered in a lot of mud, and some of them, there's a hand coming out of the ground. I don't know if they were freshly buried in that cemetery, but there's a hand coming out of the ground. When you see the zombies come out in the first movie that's just a fresh hand. Looks like they haven't been decomposed or anything, or even embalmed. But you know, a lot of these zombies are covered in mud. You get your principal corpses that have the effects, like they, you know, I think William Stout said that he wanted them to be inspired by the mummies of I can't remember, but you know, EC Comics and mummified characters type of thing, which is cool. But what this movie doesn't shy away from is every zombie is like a principal zombie in there. And I mean, when I say that, I mean every zombie. It's like Day of the Dead. You know, the original Day of the Dead in '85. Every zombie has an effect in this fucking movie. There isn't one zombie that doesn't have like some in-depth appliance to their face, man. And it's amazing. The zombie effects and the gore in this movie are amazing. So that's one thing that this movie has going for it, man, is the practical effects. They are amazing because literally, even when the character of Billy, I don't like that fucking character. I can't stand him. I know that was his character. He was the bully. But even when Billy gets sick, you know, you see the how the color changes on his skin. Then you see when he really starts eating brains and shit. Like you see like little, like his eyes start swelling up. He starts getting like that Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know, angry vampire brow thing going on, and he really looks like an undead corpse at the end of the movie. I can appreciate the effects put into this movie. Now, like I said, man, you don't, with the exception of the character of Jesse and his sister, what's her name, Lucy, with the exception of those two, I really didn't give a fuck about these characters as much as I did the first one. I'm not gonna say they were completely expendable. I'm not gonna lie, when I was a kid, I had a crush on Suzanne Snyder in this movie. I don't know if it's that red hair she got, but it was like very, you know, rock and roll Leah Thompson, Howard the Duck type of thing. But I liked her. She was just very whiny, and I don't know if they were trying to make her, you know, the sequel counterpart to Beverly Randolph's character, because you know, she was you know, Tina cried and whined a lot in that first movie, and it might have gotten on people's nerves. I can understand why, but you know, Suzanne Snyder's character, Brenda, she does that shit a lot in this movie. But I love the fact that she was down for her man. She even let her man eat her brains at the end. She's just like, okay, go ahead and do it, and he eats her brains and she lets him do it. If that's not a Listen, man, ladies, if y'all ever out there say men don't love y'all for y'all brains and y'all smarts, y'all are dead wrong, man. Suzanne Snyder is the prime example of women that appreciate that. Men that love you for your brains, for what's inside, not on the outside. You just got to go through the outside to get what's on the inside. Y'all get what I'm saying, man. But the characters, I don't like the characters as much as the characters in the first one, but they did not get on my nerves. I'm not going to say I didn't care if whether they lived or died or not. That's for another sequel that we'll get to shortly. Now, the movie overall, like I said, it's a riot. It's funny as hell, but I can understand why it wasn't received well, because at times it's almost too familiar. They're doing way too many things from that first film. You know, Tarman coming back, that's cool, because you know they hit the buttons on the Trioxin, and somehow these Trioxin barrels evolve. I guess they've got different stages of the Trioxin barrels in these films, but they just keep evolving throughout the film. Because in the first one, you know, they didn't have little punch-in numbers that glow, and you know, they glow blue or they glow red depending on if you punch in the right or wrong number. They didn't have that before, and they didn't have a fucking you know, like a nozzle where the gas comes out of. At least I don't think they did, but that's what happens in the first movie. But Tarman, I can understand, because he was in the barrel, and when they opened up when they hit the buttons for the Trioxin and it came out and went to the graveyard, you know, the body eventually gets loose. So Tarman coming back was cool, but it was a mistake to only have him in that one scene. He's not even in there for 2 minutes flat. But you know, when you have the zombies coming out of the ground scene, which is cool. I always love to see that in movies, because you don't get enough of that. You just get zombies popping up and you don't know where they came from. Even if they come out of the morgue, I want to see that. But you know, when they come out the ground, I can appreciate the hell out of that. But you get that scene and you get a theme song that is very much reminiscent of the Trioxin theme in the original movie. It's not as good, but you can tell it's like when people do cover songs. It's like a cover song for the original Trioxin theme. And for some reason, you know, it's a saving grace for the soundtrack wise, but for some reason, when they dropped like either the Blu-ray, or I don't know if it was the Shout Factory edition, or, you know, because I watch it on cable sometimes, and they completely changed the entire score for Return of the Living Dead 2. Big mistake they did there. But just certain scenes are just they're just so familiar at times, and it's almost too much nostalgia. even though you do want the movies to have certain continuity, but this could have easily been, you know, had it not been for Jonathan Terry's character coming back, this could have easily been a standalone film, you know, especially because Tom Matthews and James Karen play two different characters. This could have been a standalone film, but I don't hate it overall. It's always got a special place in my heart. Much like Return of the Living Dead 3, which came out in 1993. Now, this shifts gears a little bit, people. Let me take a quick sip of that coffee right there. That's good stuff. But Return of the Living Dead 3 will always have a special place in my heart, man. I did commentary for that also, if y'all want to check it out. It's part of my cuffing season edition when I first started it. Return of the Living Dead 3 is a whole different ball game, man. What it does is it goes back to the seriousness of part 1, but it's seriousness in tone times 20. You know, there is little to no, whatever humor I find in this movie is completely unintentional. And I promise y'all that the shit that I laugh about is shit that's not even supposed to be laughed about in this film. I guarantee that it was not written that way. Another thing they dive heavily into that's mentioned in the first movie is the typical Army fuck up. They really dive deep into that military aspect of how they're conducting experiments and doing all this shit with the Trioxin. I love that because it's centered heavily around the military, you know, amongst the Army and stuff like that. Now, this entry in particular was written by, it was directed by Brian Yuzna, who did The Reanimator, which is an insane movie, man. If y'all have not seen The Reanimator, I think I saw it for the first time last year or a year and a half ago. And I was really pleased with how insane those effects were, man. The movie's just, it's kind of got some creepy ass moments to it, man. I won't lie. He did The Reanimator. He did From Beyond. Never seen it. He did Dolls. Beyond, not Beyond, but The Bride of Reanimator. I've never seen it, but I know Kathleen Kinmont, who played Kelly Meeker in Halloween 4, is in that movie too. He did the first Guyver movie, you know, with Mark Hamill in it. Listen, people, if y'all have not seen The Guyver, please go back and watch that movie. The guy screaming Mad George did the effects for that movie, and they are nasty. Not only is the Guyver is he is an underrated superhero. You know, there's two movies. I recommend y'all watch them both, but it's, you know, they're very dated 80s and early 90s movies. But just the character of the Guyver in general. I'm not gonna, that's a whole nother episode itself. And Brian Yuzna also directed Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, The Toy Maker, and that's a really strange movie, man. You know, Mickey Rooney playing Joe Petto, you know, Geppetto, it's a reference for Geppetto, and him having a son who was not even a real human. He built this guy and his name was Pino. It was like Pinocchio. It was a really, just, it fucked me up as a kid. I'll just put it at that. But the script was written by John Penny, who wrote the movie The Kindred. Now, ooh la la, Melinda Clarke is in this movie playing Julie. She's the headliner. She's the poster child of this film. You know, J. Trevor Edmond, who was in, of course, this, Pumpkinhead 2. He's in Higher Learning. Kent McCord, who was basically the he's the OG on set. Basil Wallace. You got Mike Moroff. Sarah Douglas from Return of Swamp Thing is in it. Sal Lopez, Pia Riaz are in this movie. Now, one of the reasons this is one of the most, I think it's in my top 5 zombie movies of all time, but this is one of the most underrated zombie films ever on screen, is because this movie plays out exactly like Romeo and Juliet with zombies. It's basically a tragedy. There is no, the more and more you progress in this film, and you will, because it's not bad, at least in my opinion, it's not bad at all. And the acting is taken very seriously amongst the central characters. But the more and more you progress in this film, the more you understand that there's not going to be a happy ending to this shit. There's no happy ending in sight. Now, Julie's a zombie. She's trying to pierce herself and inflict damage on herself so she doesn't have a craving for brains anymore. She's not going to eat her boyfriend, but she'll do whatever she can to save him, and she'll do whatever she can to eat. But as the movie goes along, you know, there's a scene where J. Trevor Edmond and Melinda Clarke are sitting in Riverman's tavern, you know what I'm saying, in the sewer, this little hideout in the sewers. And he, you know, she's like, what's going to happen to us? He's like, we're going to get a place in Seattle on the water, and I'm going to get a gig in a band, and you could party all night and watch me play. And then it's like, The fuck is wrong with you, dog? This bitch, she is dead. She eats brains. Like, nothing will suppress brains. You know, she wasn't eating the cakes and pies that she was eating in a convenience store. Nothing will suppress brains. There's not going to be a happy ending to this. You guys are not going to move to Seattle. You know, what if Julie has to get a checkup? I mean, obviously she'll never have to get a checkup, but it's like, what if she starts decaying? I mean, she is dead unless the trioxin's got some type of antibody or something inside of it where you just don't, you know, you don't decay and stuff like that and get all decrepit. I don't know, but there's no happy ending in sight for this movie, man. And it makes the tragedy and the ending overall just even sadder. But again, the things this movie has going for it, the serious tone, I love it. I love that they dove headfirst into the military. As you start off at the military complex where they're conducting an experiment with the trioxin on this, this cadaver, and he comes back to life, and then they shoot him with these new projectiles. And that's one thing about the movie the series that's not consistent overall. Let me just say, the way you kill trioxin zombies, it changes up every movie. The first movie, you can't shoot them, can't kill them. You got to burn them to ash till there's nothing left. The second movie, you can't shoot them, can't burn them. You have to electrocute them, whatever. The third movie, you can't electrocute them, you can't burn them, you can't shoot them. You have to shoot these acid projectiles inside of their heads. And whatever, and then part 4, they go just back to shoot the zombies, to trioxin zombies in the head. Like, there's no consistency as far as how to kill these trioxin zombies, which is a big fucking problem. But I appreciate that they added something to the lore of this film in particular, because like I said, this has nothing to do with the movie after it, nothing to do with the movie before it. The most continuity these films have, and they change up every film, are the trioxin barrels. That's it. That's the only continuity that this series really has at its core. But Return of the Living Dead 3, I appreciate, like I said, the serious tone of it. I appreciate that the actors are taking this very seriously, as maybe even more serious than they did in the first film. I appreciate, the practical gore in this movie. God, I don't remember who did the effects for this. I want to say Steve Johnson did the effects for this. Don't quote me on that. But the effects, again, there are principal corpses, man. And there's both a theatrical version of this movie and an unrated version. If you want to get the effects, if you're a gore hound like I am, you want to get that unrated version for sure, because there are moments in the movie that are just, oh God, they still like make me cringe. Oh God, like listen to my commentary, people, for Return of the Living Dead 3, and when those moments come up, even though I'm watching the theatrical version and you don't get the parts in the full glory, I talk about when certain things happen, like when Julie's like piercing herself and stabbing herself trying to suppress the hunger and all that shit. Fuck, she's insane. But speaking of her, Melinda Clarke is amazing in this movie, man. She's just great. Like, she shines like a diamond in this film, man. And I think it was her first movie, but for her, again, to put the weight of the film on her shoulders, because it is very much about her. Like I said, she's the poster child and all of that. This is basically Romeo and Juliet, but it just turned on its ear. But Melinda Clarke's amazing here. Her and J. Trevor Edmond have great chemistry on screen, man. And I wish they were in more movies together overall. But man, really quick, like I said, the performances are good, but if I can go back to the effects really quick, man. If the series is good at one thing overall, it might not be consistency or continuity, but it's practical effects. The practical effects, they always get good practical effects in these films. Part 3 stands out, man, because there are a lot of Tom Savini like bites in this film, man. And when I say Tom Savini like bites, I'm talking about like the original Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. Those bites, you feel them. They hurt. Like, you see skin stretch before it's pulled off. It's just nasty, man. It's a good it's a good movie overall, man. But if I could point out anything that's a downer about Return of the Living Dead 3, and I know I said that it's a tragedy overall, it's the ending. I'm still making excuses for the ending in my head. I'm still saying that, spoiler alert, Kurt and Julie did not die. I'm still, there was supposed to be a sequel to this. I think Brian Yuzna had an idea for a sequel where at the end, the zombies escape the facility. you know, when they're locking down the facility, the zombies escape and they go running amok in downtown LA. I would love to see that shit. I would have loved to see that. I'm cool with a direct sequel right now. Right now, Brian Yuzna, where are you at, sir? I hope you are on Instagram, because I am going to tag you to this episode post, sir. Now, moving on. Let's get dark. Let's get dark, people. Let me take a sip of this coffee because it's about to get dark. And it only took us to get to the fourth movie to do that. But we've only got 2 more, so we're not going to be taking up too much time here. Now, let's get dark for a second. Join me, people, in the land of the lost right now. The Return of the Living Dead Necropolis, 2005. I did shit show edition commentary for this if y'all want to check it out at your own risk. But this movie was directed by Ellery Elkayem. And I mentioned him a few episodes ago when I talked about bug flicks that make me itch. He directed They Nest. He directed Eight-Legged Freaks. And he also directed one of our favorite movies in the entire world, people, Return of the Living Dead 5. Rave to the grave, but we'll get to that next. Now, this movie was written by Aaron Strogany, who wrote Return of the Living Dead 5, and it was written by William Butler, who wrote Return of the Living Dead 5. Now, I could be making a mistake here. I was always under the impression that the William Butler who wrote these movies and had parts in these movies was the William Butler who played what's his name, Michael in Friday the 13th Part 7. He played Tom in Night of the Living Dead, the remake, and he played Ryan in Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I was always under the impression that this guy who has this horror background was a part of this series, because I remember when this movie was in production, they said William Butler was a part of it, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like, this guy, like he knows zombies better than anybody. He was in one of the best remakes of all time, Night of the Living Dead. So, you know, I had my faith in it. So much for that. But Peter Coyote, who I always, you know, I completely forgot, but now I always think of E.T. when he comes in, because he was the guy that was leading those, you know, they're not Martians, but they came in the spacesuits and shit. That was one of the scariest parts in that movie. But Peter Coyote's in this movie, John Keefe, Corey Hardrick, Corey Hardrick's married to one of the Mowry twins. I can't really pinpoint if it's Tia or Tamara, but Corey Hardrick, that's a win in life right there, because he's married to one of them. Let me say one thing about this guy. He's the token black guy in this movie. He's no Miguel A. Nunez in the first Return of the Living Dead. I know that, but I want to like this guy in every movie. I just wish that they wrote his characters better than what they do. I just, you know, I like that he's the smartest guy on the team. You know, he's like a low key computer hacker. He can make like IDs and all this other shit. He's a big part in when they break into the Necropolis, or when they break into the Hypertech building. But, you know, I just watched him in, what's that movie called, with Clint Eastwood? He had a scene in, Gran Torino. And I'm cracking the fuck up because he's talking to Scott Eastwood. He's like, call me bro again, I'll bite your damn face off. Like, I wish that character should have been in more scenes, yo. And he's in this movie called The Day with, I think Shawn Ashmore's in it, and the guy who played Bradley in X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's a decent ass post-apocalyptic film, man. I just wish Corey Hardrick was in it more, and I wish that people wrote better shit for his characters, man. But it's like, I can't knock him. Black man working, can't knock him. He's the token black guy here. He gets to let off Uzis and pistols and all types of shit. Cool, fine. Amy Lynn Chadwick's also in this movie. Jana Kramer's in this movie. Listen, people, if you're listening to this and you are aware of the commentary I did for the Return of the Living Dead 4, y'all know I don't give a fuck about this film, man. No disrespect, people, but this film is a piece of shit if I've ever seen one. And they have the audacity to try to do little Easter eggs and callbacks to the original movie. Peter Coyote's conducting experiments with the Trioxin. He's got this dead corpse inside of a you know, like a chamber, basically, and he turns on the Trioxin and it comes into the vents and it wakes this guy up. And lo and behold, this is a test subject. You know, he's got the test subject clothes on of the patients in Necropolis and shit. Necropolis is basically where they keep the dead people at, the reanimated corpses. But he's got this test subject from Necropolis with the scrubs on. Oh, he's got a yellow mohawk that's sticking completely straight up. Oh, he's got a bite mark on the top of his head. Is that supposed to be Scuzz? The zombie of Scuzz when he got bit on his head by the half corpse lady? Fuck y'all, man. Fuck y'all. 6 ways from Sunday. And today is Sunday. So what better day than today to say fuck y'all for even doing that? Don't even try it, man. Then you've got, they even do send more security guards. And you could tell his line was dubbed over in ADR, but that's a nod to when they say send more paramedics, which is a landmark scene in Return of the Living Dead and just in zombie films in general. They even do that shit. Like, well, listen, man, y'all did me wrong with this movie. The only thing this movie has going for it are the practical effects. The zombies, when they bite brains out, the shit looks nasty. The zombie effects look cool. You know, when they're ripping people apart, it looks cool. The only thing that I don't like is that, I don't know if it was a rat or a possum that the homeless people were like cooking on a rotisserie type of fire stick thing. But I hated the effect of that. The shit just looked like one of them rubber puppets like that you used to get from Pizza Hut that was like one of the characters from Eureka's Castle back in the day or something like that. It looked terrible, but overall, the practical effects are really decent for the movie, but the directing is terrible. The writing is awful. The acting is terrible. You know, for the most part, the only person I give a pass in this movie is Corey Hardrick, and I don't even give Peter Coyote a pass for this film. With him being the OG, but for some reason, man, I will go back to this movie after a few beers in on like a humbug evening and I'll watch it. I don't know, man, the self-torture is a motherfucker. Like, you know, I just mentioned Julie from part 3. She's, you know, self-mutilation type of shit. That's what watching this movie feels like to me, because every time I'm like, maybe there's a small something I can maybe appreciate about it other than the effects, but no, I absolutely do not. Not even the fact that the chick, you know, the triple jointed Sagittarian gymnast, you know, she's a fellow Sagittarian. Shout out to all the Sagittariuses out there. I was like, oh, she's a Sagittarius, but I'm like, all her lines don't sound like she's actually saying them. It sounds like, again, ADR. But this movie is awful, people. And I feel like it's so disrespectful to the entire Return of the Living Dead series overall. But, you know, with that being said, this movie can't take the cake for being the most disrespectful entry at all. That award goes to, drum roll please, The Return of the Living Dead 5, Rave to the Grave, people. Think came out the same year. They had the audacity also to shoot these motherfuckers back to back, 4 and 5. They said, oh, this is going to be a hit right here. No, it's not. But it went from Rave from the Grave to Rave to the Grave. It's a different title. Like, there's 2 different titles to it. But, you know, no need to get into the writers and directors. These are the same motherfuckers as before. No need to get into the cast. These are the same motherfuckers as before. A couple other added characters. You got these 2 fake ass Russian Pulp Fiction characters who just walk around in matching suits, and just every scene they're like side by side doing some buddy cop Pulp Fiction, fake ass John Travolta, Samuel Jackson type of shit. It's one of the worst zombie movies I've ever seen, people. But practical effects it's got going for it. Could have did something had this not been the 5th entry in a series that's already going to shit. What they did in this movie was they made the trioxin into a drug. Apparently they've got this wizard. I want to say it's a different guy that did it, but I want to say that Corey Hardrick's character had like a lab coat on and was doing like experiments and shit in the room. And from what I remember, because I've only seen this shit once, and from what I remember, it was either Corey Hardrick's character or another guy who conjured up this experiment and put the trioxin in pill form. And what happens is these pills get distributed out to this rave. And of course, all the kids at the rave start taking the trioxin pill. They start freaking out. Everybody turns into zombies. Now, that is something right there. Even though it's a fucking stupid idea, at least they tried to do something different. It's goofy, it's silly, but it's like, all right, maybe if the series was done differently in a 3rd entry, y'all could have did that and turned the trioxin on his ear and just been like, listen, if you take it in certain doses, you just get high as fuck. But it's like, I don't know if you're going to turn into a zombie or not. I don't know. But I kind of like the notion of that, but it's a fucking stupid idea for a 5th entry in a series. Like I said, that's already going to hell in a handbasket, man. Now, there's no memorable scenes here. From what I remember, a lot of the characters died that came back. the girl who with the glasses that was in, I think her name was Becky from the first movie or the fourth movie, she dies. I think Corey Hardrick's character dies. I don't know if the character of I don't know if John Keefe's character dies or not. I'm not sure. But this movie's a piece of shit, people. Practical effects aside, even though they're decent, this movie's fucking garbage. And I remember they showed them back to back on Sci-Fi Channel. I was just so appalled at this film. I said, listen, 4 was bad, but if you make it your business to get worse than part 4, 10 times worse, then that's a fucking accomplishment, man, that you shouldn't be acknowledged for. But I've got to acknowledge it because it's terrible, man. And it's a shame this series went out the way it did. They even brought Tarman back. You know how this movie ends? You know how this series ends, people? Let me take a sip of this coffee one time. Damn it. You know how this movie ends, people? This series. You know how this series is capped off? With one of the scariest zombies to ever grace screen, one of our beloved zombies ever, Tarman himself, is in the scene hitchhiking on the side of the road with a sign that says rave or bust. And they're playing like this sad country song. So the woman is driving or the guy's driving the car with his wife, and the woman sees Tarman and she screams, and he stares at the car as it drives off. He kind of throws the sign down all angry, and he walks off. He just walks off, leaving a trail of tar footprints, and he's just saying brains a couple times as he walks off down the road into the sunset. That is how we end the Return of the Living Dead series. I feel like that is heartbreaking for me, man, because like I said in the early stages of this episode, this is a series that deserved way better than it got. And it really, I'm not even joking, y'all, when I say that, it breaks my heart to see the series go out on the terms that it did, especially with that scene where, this series has humor all around it, especially the first movie. Humor was a huge part of it, but it does feel like a slap in the face. It feels like you're making just a mockery of the movie, and you're just not respecting anything that Dan O'Bannon, William Stout, John Russo, anything that they did for the first film at all. You are not respecting the template whatsoever. And I feel like that was a fucked up note for the series to end on overall. Now, which raises the question, people, what do we do now? What do we do now? Ask Tudor. Let's ask Tudor. That needs to be a segment on the show or something like that. Y'all know what I'm about to say, man. And if y'all don't know what I'm about to say, I'll give y'all a hint. My answer for what do we do now is not going to be make a part 6. It's not. Y'all know it's time for a reboot. It's time for a reboot. Now listen, hear me out now. I know people are like, a reboot of one of the greatest films of all time. Fuck you, Tudor. It's like, I get it. I understand if people heard that and they just frowned their face. I'm like, what? I get it. But you got to understand something. I feel like when a series deserved way better, or it hasn't, in this case, it deserved way better. But if you look at movies they reboot back in the day, some movies can use an upgrade. They haven't aged well. I understand when people get mad at reboots like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Night of the Living Dead. Those movies, those are classics. You know, there's really nothing to improve on. It's the only thing you can do differently is do something differently. You know, tweak the story, tweak the character, whatever the case may be. But this is a series, because it went out the way it did. It's time for a reboot, man. And I say, if you reboot this movie, I say take the best parts of part 1 and part 3. Which is the balance of humor, horror, and practical gore. I feel like if you take the best parts of parts 1 and 3 and you inject them properly, equally, into a reboot of the Return of the Living Dead, I feel like you are already halfway home. Because those are big things that the first movie really prided itself on. And like I said before, the balance between the two was gore aside, the balance between the humor and the horror was very important to that first movie. And it's one of the reasons that movie is hailed a classic. It's one of the reasons why it's not the scariest zombie movie of all time. It's like one of the most fun, badass, zombie movies you could ever watch and just have a ball with. The soundtrack is badass. And I'm not even a big rock and roll guy, but I love that soundtrack start to finish, top to bottom. You know what I'm saying? That soundtrack's amazing. And I feel like when you add those elements to the reboot, when you give people that kind of nostalgia, like, oh, they're staying true to what the original did, but they're doing their own thing, you're already halfway home. I feel like another thing they should do in reference to Return of the Living Dead 3 in a reboot is you've got to dig I think you should, especially now. Like, you don't have to be heavy handed on the social commentary and beat people over the head with a message and like make it about something per se, but I feel like they should dig into the military aspect of part 3, and, you know, capitalize on that quote unquote typical army fuck up again, because it's very common. And, you know, it's not really disrespectful to do, because you got to understand, Return of the Living Dead was spawned off of Night of the Living Dead, and Night of the Living Dead, even George A. Romero made a historical and political statement in that film when he made it, and his social commentary was very much there, man. He was very much trying to say something, and there were times throughout that movie, which carried on into every other good zombie movie for that matter, where it's not, the zombies aren't even the threat, it's the human beings themselves, which says a lot about society today. You know, we can't even coexist. I say this a lot. We can't even coexist amongst each other long enough to realize that we're not supposed to be enemies here, but by the time we realize that, we've already wiped ourselves out, and the threat is going to win eventually. We're going to do them a problem. We're going to exterminate ourselves, type of thing. But I feel like they should bring that military aspect back into the fold. I feel like it would be a good angle to use it on. Maybe not center it around the film so much as they did with part 3, but just put enough of it in there, you know, kind of like they did with the first movie with, you know, early on when you see Colonel Glover, the end of the movie where you see Colonel Glover again and you see them launching the nuke, that type of thing. I feel like there should be some military sides of it. I say maybe put some OG characters in it. You know, just as a, like, I think Clu Gulager's still around. Hopefully so, he is. You know, put one of the punk rock kids in there in a cameo or something, or maybe have Clu Gulager play, or Tom Matthews play, you know, Colonel Glover this time around. I think that would be a nice notion, and people would be like, oh, he was in the original movie, or oh, he was in the first 2 movies, or something like that. Or have, like, you know, like I said, one of the original punk rockers in there. Have Miguel A. Nunez in there, or have Linnea Quigley. I would love to see Linnea Quigley just in another Return of the Living Dead movie, just playing a completely different character, man. I would love to see it. Also, or what they could do, they could actually do a direct sequel to Return of the Living Dead. Now, this is not uncommon, people, because I did an episode, y'all can check out if y'all want to. It was pretty early on into 2020, where I did like a recap of an article that they dropped where they said that there was a direct sequel, but it was a comic book. It was called Revenge of the Living Dead. And you see that the characters have survived. Ernie survived, Tina survived, Spider, Bert, Chuck, Casey, they all survived in it, and they just go on with their story after the bomb has been dropped. I think I can't really remember the overall synopsis for that comic book, but you could do a direct sequel to that. I'm not sure how you would explain that, being as though they did nuke the town. If anybody could survive, I would think it would be Bert, Spider, Casey, and Chuck, because they were in the basement, and you know, basements are, you know, I don't know. I'm maybe I'm reaching here, but I would say everything above ground, maybe got fucked up. I don't know. Maybe they survived, but you know, it could work, man. Especially because we're in a, but, you know, a lot of people would be like, oh, my God, this movie came out in 1985. Nobody was asking for a direct sequel to this. But you know what? Fuck that. That's where a bias comes in here, where I don't give a shit, because it'd be a hell of a lot better than the last 2 movies we got in the series. And it'd be a hell of a lot better than movies that wait 17,000 years to do sequels to. But I would be down with a direct sequel, especially because that's the trend nowadays, man. You see Terminator Dark Fate. They've got another direct sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming out. Halloween 2018 was a direct sequel. Candyman's a direct sequel. You know what I mean? It's a market for direct sequels nowadays. But I feel like all in all, man, as I wrap this episode up, I feel like all in all, this series, it deserved way better, and it deserves way better. So, and you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb here because we're almost an hour into this. I don't want to piss anybody off, but the person that comes to mind when directing a Return of the Living Dead reboot is always and forever going to be Rob Zombie. And it makes sense, man. Rob Zombie's a fucking rock star. And I don't mean that in the sense of the music he makes. I mean just his lifestyle. He's a fucking rock star. So who better than to do punk rock teens with trash mouths? This is where, you know, the people that hated the way he wrote the dialogue for Halloween and Halloween 2, where it's like, oh, skull, fuck this shit. Like these potty mouthed ass heathen motherfuckers. I feel like it'll fit perfectly amongst the punk rockers in the movie, man. I would love it. And it would fit perfectly amongst Frank, Freddie, and Bert. You know what I'm saying? At the medical supply warehouse, cursing each other the fuck out and just going crazy while the zombie. And then, fuck it. All the I mean, people are going to be like, well, does your hair stop growing or fall out when you're dead? It's like, I wouldn't mind seeing muddy, dirty, prosthetic ridden, long haired zombies in the dark, man. You know what I'm saying? That run fast as shit. And you know, if Rob Zombie ever did a Return of the Living Dead remake, you know, the soundtrack is going to be fire. He's always the person that comes to mind. I would want Rob Zombie to direct either a remake for Return of the Living Dead, a remake for 976 Evil, or a remake for Slaughter High. I said it. I don't care. Come at me, bro. It's like, no, I don't want anybody to come at me, man. I don't want no problems. I'm just speaking my mind, people. Y'all know that when y'all tune into, y'all know for like 300 plus episodes over a span of almost 2 years now, y'all know I'm gonna go off the deep end as far as, as far as like my unpopular opinions and me being outspoken as far as movies go. But that's it, man. But I think one thing we can all agree on here overall, because I'm about to wrap this up, is that the Return of the Living Dead series, the first one definitely gets his dues. The third one definitely gets his dues. And I feel like a lot more people are learning to appreciate the third one in particular. No diss to the second one, but I feel like the first one is where it's at, then the third one, then the second. But the last two, we got fucked over hard, man. One thing we can agree on is that the first one is where it's at, and it's forever going to be a popular title. And there will be no doubt in my mind that if they said a Return of the Living Dead remake is coming, it's going to be people split down the middle. It's going to be people like, what? Like, I hated those last couple movies, man. Like, cool, let's bring it on and see what they can do with it. Or it's going to be people that are just completely going to boycott the shit before it even comes out. Me personally, I'm going to be all for it. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt if, knock on wood, it ever happens, man. Hopefully it does, because anything is better than the last two I got. That's one of the reasons why I'm still hanging in there with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, because I'm like, and the Wrong Turn series, because I'm like, this series has nowhere to go but up, considering the last few installments, man. You know what I mean? And this is one of those instances where the series could not go anywhere but up. Direct sequel or remake. I preferably say remake, but either one could work. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going off the deep end here. But y'all already know, man, I'm going off the deep end, but y'all know where to go. And just in the goddamn technical difficulties right there. But I was saying, before I was so rudely interrupted, was if y'all don't know where to go, which y'all should, y'all can follow the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Breaker, and Radio Public. Shout out to Anchor. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Romero Tudor. Shout out to the Facebook movie group, The Cinemaniacs. Happy Sunday to you, mofos. And last but not least, shout out to the Tudor reviewers, the listeners, the lovers, the supporters out there. I see we jumped up 4.5K spins, something like that. Something like that. We're halfway home, people. We are halfway to the 5K mark, man. We gonna get there. I'm gonna wait until it's 4.8, 4.9 to do my speaking into existence type of moment during the episode. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna jinx it. If it happens, it happens. Cool. I'm grateful, humbled, like I always am, people. But y'all already know, man, the love and support y'all show me, I show it to y'all tenfold and then some. So with that being said, people, yours truly, Romero Tudor. Another episode of Tudor Reviews in the can. I'll check y'all on the next one.